This, this, this. There we go. All right. I have not practiced this, so I'll try my best. But would somebody like to volunteer? All right. Yasma adad udhadir udadir udha bhayanga vepo margam sapajya ripuram haravati dakshaso dure suhran matita rosha sushona drishtya tatapyamana makaro raga nakrachakram Yasma adadudadhir udha bhayanga pepo margam sapacharipur haravad didakshso dure suhran matita rosha sushona drishtya tatapyamana makaro raga nakrachakra Yasma adat udhadir udha bhayanga vepo margam sapaccharipuram haravati dakshaso dure suhran matita rosha sushona drishtya tatapyamana makaro raga nakrachakra. Please chant, those of you who would like to.
Hare Krishna. Yasma adad udahrit udaha bhayanga bhaypu margam sapadi aripuram haravat didikshaha dure suhun mahita mathita dosa shushona drishtva tata payimana makaroga nakra chakra. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yasma adad udhir udapayang vepo margam sapadya haripuram harvad didakshaso dure suhen matiterosha sushona drishtya tatpayamana makaro raga nakra chakraha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yasma adat udadhir udabhayanga vepo margam sapadya ari puram haravad dedaksho dure suran matita rosa sushona drishtya tatapyamana makaro raga nakra chakra. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yashma dadudhadir udhavayanga vepo margam shapadya aripuram haravad didhakshaho dure shuhim mahitata rosha shushona drishtya tatapyamana makaro gamana krachakraha.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. We'll do the word for word and translation and the purport. Yasmai, unto whom Adat gave, Udadhi, the great Indian Ocean. Udha Bhaya, affected by fear. Angavepa, bodily trembling. Margam, way. Sapadi, quickly. Aripuram, the city of the enemy. Haravat, like that of Hara, Mahadev. Didakshasho, desiring to burn to ashes. Dure, at a long distance. Suhrit, intimate friend. Matita, being aggrieved by. Rosha, in anger. Sushona, red hot. Drishtya, by such a glance. Tatapyamana, burning in heat. Makara, sharks. Uraga, snakes. Nakra, crocodiles. Chakra, circle. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The personality of Godhead, Ramachandra, being aggrieved for his distant, intimate friend Sita, glanced over the city of the enemy Ravana with red-hot eyes like those of Haram, who wanted to burn the kingdom of heaven. The great ocean, trembling in fear, gave him his way because its family members, the aquatics like the sharks, snakes, and crocodiles, were being burned by the heat of the angry red-hot eyes of the Lord. The personality of Godhead has every sentiment of a sentient king, like all other living beings, because he is the chief and original living entity, the supreme source of all other living beings. He is the Nitya, or the chief eternal amongst all other eternals. He is the chief one, and all others are the dependent many. The many eternals are supported by the one eternal, and thus both the eternals are qualitatively one. Due to such oneness, both the eternals constitutionally have a complete range of sentiments, but the difference is that the sentiments of the chief eternal are different in quantity from the sentiments of the dependent eternals. When Ramachandra was angry and showed his red-hot eyes, the whole ocean became heated with that energy, so much so that the aquatics within the great ocean felt the heat, and the personified ocean trembled in fear and offered the Lord an easy path for reaching the enemy's city. The impersonalists will see havoc in this red-hot sentiment of the Lord because they want to see negation in perfection. Because the Lord is absolute, the impersonalists imagine that in the absolute, the sentiment of anger, which resembles mundane sentiments, must be conspicuous by absence. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, they do not realize that the sentiment of the absolute person is transcendental to all mundane concepts of quality and quantity. Had Lord Ramachandra's sentiment been of mundane origin, how could it disturb the whole ocean and its inhabitants? Can any mundane, red-hot eye generate heat in the great ocean? These are factors to be distinguished in terms of the personal and impersonal conceptions of the absolute truth. As it is said in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the absolute truth is the source of everything. So the absolute person cannot be devoid of the sentiments that are reflected in the temporary mundane world. Rather, the different sentiments found in the absolute, either in anger or in mercy, have the same qualitative influence. Or in other words, there is no mundane difference of value because these sentiments are all on the absolute plane. Such sentiments are definitely not absent in the absolute, as the impersonalists think, making their mundane estimation of the transcendental world. We're also reading 2725 today. Vakshasthala sparsha rubna mahendra vaha dantair vidambita kukubjusha ऊढा हासं सज्जोषुभिः सह विनश्यति दारहर्तुर् विस्फूर्जितैर्धनुषा उचरतो दिशैन्ये. When Ravana was engaged in the battle, the trunk of the elephant which carried the king of heaven, Indra, broke in pieces, having collided with the chest of Ravana, and the scattered broken parts illuminated all directions. Ravana therefore felt proud of his prowess and began to loiter in the midst of the fighting soldiers, thinking himself the conqueror of all directions. But his laughter, overtaken by joy, along with his very air of life, suddenly ceased with the tingling sound of the bow of Ramachandra, the personality of Godhead. Purport: however powerful a living being may be, when he is condemned by God, no one can save him. And similarly, however weak one may be, if he is protected by the Lord, no one can annihilate him. We should read that purport again. However powerful a living being may be, when he is condemned by God, no one can save him. And similarly, however weak one may be, if he is protected by the Lord, no one can annihilate him. Looks like my scheduling today confused some of our speakers, so we will have to just manage this class together. If anybody has any realizations from that purport, we can get started there. Drona Prabhu is here, Mother Sita is here, Madhavi Gaurangi Mataji is here. Please share your thoughts on this.
I can start by saying that the faith, what you just read, that, if Krishna is there and the weakest person can survive, but you can be the strongest, and if Krishna is, Krishna wants you gone, you're gone.
Yeah.
And that faith, for us to develop that faith, we know that. We all know that as devotees. We have read it hundreds of times. But are we able to practice that? When we are in a situation, when we are in a difficult situation, do we really say, okay, Krishna's in charge and he's going to take care of it, and I'm just going to put forward my best, and the rest is on Krishna? Are we able to really practice that in daily life? That is the main thing that comes to me personally. I'm trying, and there are certain times that I'm able to practice that, but there are certain times when I am not. And it doesn't even occur to me, because my conditioned mind is just takes me to anger and frustrations, or where I shut down and I just don't even want to talk, and I'm just down, right? But that is where we have to catch ourselves and then say, this is Krishna's arrangement. Krishna knows our past, Krishna knows our present, Krishna knows our future, Krishna knows what's best for me. So obviously, we are in this material body, and with all the conditioning from millions of our past lives, we're not going to be able to get over it in a day. We catch a bad habit. It takes us, a lot of therapy to get rid of a bad habit, for, what to speak of conditioning from millions of lifetimes, right? Yes. So it is important that we take this seriously and we really practice it, and every single day remind ourselves, Krishna's in charge. Whatever happens today, there's going to be a lot of things that's going to happen today, but I'm going to remember, please Krishna, help me remember and not forget that you're in charge and you're going to do what's best for me. And I know that is 100% accurate, and just believe in it. That's my takeaway.
Yes. Three things that you said: faith, practice, and Krishna knows best. So sometimes we want something a certain way. We want, some result. We think that is the best. And if things don't go that way, we should remember that Krishna knows best for us. If that was not how it was going to pan out, then that's how it is. That's the best for us, and that's why he's doing it. And the other 2 points, absolutely, I think we must have faith. Sometimes we seem to be, hearing what we hear and then doing what we do. And we have to bring those two together. What we hear is what we should be trying to practice. Again, like you said, we are conditioned. We are having to get rid of a lot of bad habits or bad conditioning, and it's not easy. It's not easy. When I first tried to give up caffeine, I was very sympathetic to people who were trying to give up drugs. I mean, it is so hard. It is, and that was just one small thing. And for millions of lifetimes, we've been accumulating bad habits. So it's going to take time. So we shouldn't give up. We should just remember that it's going to take time. Be patient with ourselves, but we need to bring those two together. A lot of times we'll hear something, we'll say, oh, that was in Satya Yuga, not going to happen now. I'm living in Kali Yuga. That's just an excuse. We cannot be giving excuses. We have to try and, try harder to practice what we are. I mean, what is the point if every morning we're listening to these classes and then we say, oh, but then it doesn't apply to this day and age? Then why are we even listening? Why do we have to hear about Kunti? Why do we have to, hear that even though she was going through so many travails, so many difficulties, she never gave up faith. She never stopped believing that Krishna is the answer to everything. What is the point? I think those two are very important words to remember: faith and practice. That definitely, even though it was just a 2-line purport, that says everything. If Krishna wants something done, he will make it happen. We cannot be applying our mundane understanding of what these emotions. Like in the first purport, it was saying the impersonalists think, how can God have anger? And I remember being asked this question also when we used to do Satyanarayan Puja when we were in India. One of these stories would be about Vishnu getting angry. And that's why they were going through difficulties. And so it was like, how can God get angry? How can he have? But, like Prabhupada explains in that purport, we have the same qualities as Krishna does, or Krishna has given us the same qualities that he has. Just that our quantity is very minute, and we're not capable of exercising them the way he exercises them. But if Krishna wills something to happen, it's going to happen. As impossible that it may seem to us, as unheard of it may be for us, he can make it happen. And if he says no, then no matter what we do. Ravana had strength, he had wealth, he had everything, but he could not. He was not going to win that battle. He made a mistake. He took what belonged to Rama, and it was not going to that would never be allowed to happen. So those two lines of the second verse, 25th verse, that says everything to me. Anybody else? Kaivalya Prabhu? Go ahead, Drona Prabhu.
Kaivalya Prabhu, you can speak first.
Yeah, I just joined, Prabhu, so I do not know what discussion was going on. So,
Okay.
Anyway, let me see.
If you would like, I can say something, and then
Yeah,
you
please,
can
go ahead.
say after
Go ahead.
that. I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Sure.
And so this purport, thank you, Shobharati, for facilitating this. So there's a verse that says, Rake Krishna Moreke, More Krishna Rakeke. That if Krishna wants me to die, no one can save me. If Krishna wants me to live, nobody can kill me. And it's similar to, the same theme that's being spoken about in this purport. And really how everything is resting in Krishna's hands. As much as we think is resting in our hands, really things, every life, the situations in life, they're all being controlled by Krishna one way or another. And when we're able to see Krishna's hands in this, it'll bring us to a sense of peace, and really take the pressure off of us. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't, we still have to act. We have to act to the best of our ability. But this is where the element of detachment comes into play. And when we think that we're very powerful, we're very intelligent, we're very strong, we're very smart, we're very beautiful, all these different opulences that we can accumulate in this world. And of course, we know that Krishna has them in full all the time, so we can't even compare ourselves to Krishna. But when we have these give us a sense of security. They give us a sense of self-worth. But all of them are temporary. They all diminish. They will all go away over time. And we've seen people have wealth and then, they're very popular or they feel like they're very secure. And then all of a sudden it gets taken away. Stock market crashes, maybe the business fails, they get sued, whatever, then all of a sudden they're in a different situation. Or, somebody's very, beautiful or whatever like that, and their beauty dwindles over time, or a person becomes very strong and maybe there's an injury that's caused to them. And then all of a sudden they have no more self-worth. They have no longer any type of value to themselves, because their value has been placed in something that's material and not spiritual. The other thing is, it kind of ties in a little bit to Ishwara Puri, whose disappearance day is today. I researched a little bit about him I spoke a little bit on Sunday when I gave class at the temple. And Ishwara Puri, he was empowered by his spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri, because of the service that he performed at the end of his life. And he took care of his spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri. He was his caregiver during his last days. He would clean up for him. When he would, use the bathroom, he would help him do that and clean him. And this is a very difficult service to do, especially if you're not a trained nurse, or, if you don't have any training in that department, to go in and become a caregiver. And this was Ishwara Puri's service to his spiritual master. In addition, he would recite pastimes of Krishna to help him remember Krishna at the time of death. And due to this service, he was endowed with all the good qualities of becoming a spiritual master himself. And he always presented himself as a very simple, humble servant of the Lord. His first meeting with Lord Chaitanya, this was before Lord Chaitanya had met him in Gaya, and this was in Navadvip. And when he arrived, he came unannounced, and he came just in simple cloth, not a lot of belongings, and he just sat in the front yard of Advaitacharya. He didn't want any type of reception. He didn't expect any type of praise or anything like that, and no one really even knew who he was. And Mukunda Ghosh, who was one of the leading devotees of the time, he was known for his singing. He started singing. He was walking by and he started singing, and Ishwara Puri, he fell into ecstasy. And Ishwara Puri, they realized, Advaitacharya realized that this is not an ordinary soul. Like he's crying like real tears of joy, and the symptoms of ecstatic love are manifested within this individual. And then they found out it was the great Ishwara Puri, who had the disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Now Advaitacharya, he was also a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, so they were god brothers, and he was able to connect with them on that level. Later he met Nimai Pandit, and Nimai Pandit became very, was very respectful of Ishwara Puri. He was known at that time, Nimai Pandit, to tease and kind of heckle the devotees. This is because he had not yet revealed himself as the Yuga Avatar, but he was the scholar Brahmin of the great debater of Navadvip. He had a school, he had students, and he would always kind of tease and heckle the Vaishnavas. And the devotees at the time, they didn't really want so much to do with him, although they were very attracted. They just thought he was just wasting his time, and they didn't want him to waste their time by engaging in logic and argument. So, but with Ishwara Puri, he'd invite him to his house. Mother Sachi and Lakshmi Priya, his wife, would cook for him, and he would speak on his book called, it was Krishna Lilamrita. And he had heard that he was a great Sanskrit scholar, that Nimai Pandit was, and that he had defeated Keshava Kashmiri and corrected his poetry, and really baffled Keshava Kashmiri, who was the leading scholar, logician, debater in India at that time. And he was traveling all around India, just going into battle, mental battles with people, and he was beating them one after another. And this young Nimai Pandit was able to defeat him. So he said, why don't you please, he says, I have a lot of defects in my writing. So this is another sign of his humility. I have a lot of defects in my humility, in my writing. So please, can you comment on them and correct it, because I want it to be perfect. Because when it gets passed down from generation to generation, I want people to read to be a reflection and glorification of Krishna. Whatever is done for Krishna should be done with the highest class. Srila Prabhupada once said that, we should do a first class. He said above first class. He says it's for Krishna, it should be above first class. We do things for ourselves a lot of times, and we want it in our houses and our own personal possessions. We want it to be first class. Sometimes for Krishna, we think, it's okay if it's, if it just gets done, it gets done. But this is the example with Ishwara Puri. his own writing, he says, even I see that there's many defects. I want it to be fixed because I want its glorification for Krishna. It should be the highest. But Nimai Pandit said, I can't comment on what you've said because you're a pure devotee of the Lord, and it would be an offense for me to add my, scholastic interpretation or correction into something that was purely motivated from your soul. And they would go back and forth. He said, no, please comment on it. I really need you to do it, And so finally, Nimai Pandit said, yes, okay. If you insist, I would suggest that you use, and he gave him, some recommendations. Use this word instead of that word, and you can move this around and that around. And Ishwara Puri thanked him, and then later came back and said, the next day came back and he told Nimai Pandit, he says, what you've told me, I went back and I reflected on and I prayed, and I realized what you were saying doesn't actually capture the correct mood of the poetry. Therefore, I think it should stay the same. And Nimai Pandit was overwhelmed with joy. Because that was his initial feeling, was that what you've already composed is perfect. But Ishwara Puri was also thinking that it's imperfect. And when you look at that compared to the interaction between him and Nimai Pandit and Keshava Kashmiri, who was extremely proud and was very powerful and very strong. He came into Navadvip, riding an elephant with a marching band and, many servants walking around, carrying his belongings, preparing all his arrangements, versus Ishwara Puri, who came very simple, without any announcement at all, was willing to just sleep on the ground. And Nimai Pandit, he was defeated by this great devotee, Ishwara Puri, who had actually composed it properly, but was considering himself inadequate, as opposed to Keshava Kashmiri, who was so powerful. He considered himself to be without fault, but Nimai Pandit was able to very simply point out certain defects in his poetry and in his character, which proved out to be true. Later on, after Nimai Pandit, Lord Chaitanya, his father, Jagannath Mishra, had passed away, and he performed his final rites and went to Gaya to do so. He went into the temple of Lord Vishnu and saw the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, and the devotees there glorifying the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. And love of God began to awaken within him, and he met Ishwara Puri again. And he begged Ishwara Puri to please initiate him and to give him, to give him initiation into the holy names. And Ishwara Puri gave him initiation. That was his spiritual. He became his spiritual. He accepted him as a spiritual master, and Ishwara Puri accepted him as a disciple. And you can see that this is, the platform that Krishna, if he's going to take on a spiritual master, he picked the guru who exhibited these qualities of such humility and such connection with Krishna. Lord Chaitanya went to visit Ishwara Puri's birthplace and collected soil, earth from his birthplace, and kept it in a cloth. And every day he would eat a little bit of that soil as a sign of surrender to his spiritual master. And in that way, he showed, service, even though he was the Supreme Lord. Even he took and accepted and was accepted as he accepted his spiritual master, and he served his spiritual master. And he always considered himself to be inferior to his spiritual master, even though he was the Supreme Lord. One time with Prakashananda Saraswati, this was, later after Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas, Prakashananda Saraswati had asked him, he says, why did you, why don't you study Vedanta with us? This is the proper role of a sannyasi. We study the Vedas, we discuss the Vedas. He says, you appear effulgent, you appear to be self-realized, but yet you hang out on the streets with people chanting and dancing. This is not the proper activity of a sannyasi. And Lord Chaitanya says, my spiritual master considered me to be a fool and unworthy of reciting Vedanta and studying Vedanta. In fact, he said that by studying Vedanta, one cannot achieve the liberation in this life. It is only through the chanting of the holy names of God in this age of Kali. And then he went on to preach. But he considered himself always to be fool, or in the presence of Ishwara Puri, he considered himself always to be at service to his spiritual master in executing the Sankirtan mission. Anyway, there were just some thoughts I had there. I'm sorry I went on for a little bit, but I wanted to tie in Ishwara Puri's, Srila Ishwara Puri's interactions with Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's interactions with Keshava Kashmiri in relationship to this being very powerful materially and Krishna crushing you, and then also, appearing very kind of humble and meek, and Krishna empowering you to become one of his greatest servants. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Do you want to?
So I have a question. Sorry, you were going to say something?
No, go ahead.
So, as we try to develop as a devotee and try to please Krishna and our and the faith, as you said, the verse Mare Krishna Rakhe Koi, right? To develop and we are always struggling, right, with the conditioning that we have. What do you recommend as a practical example that will help us break this conditioning that we are fighting pretty much every minute of the day?
We have to continuously chant the holy names of Krishna, and we have to hear about Krishna, and we should be as present as we possibly can while doing these things. We should contemplate these subjects. and execute them in our lives. It may not happen immediately, but we should, by chanting the holy names, Krishna will purify us within and will purify our consciousness so that we can see things clearly. Not only will it purify us of our sins and our past activities and things like that, but our character will begin to develop spiritually. Lust, anger, greed, they begin to go down. When lust, anger, greed's there, we don't see things. We can see this from the Bhagavad Gita. We don't see things clearly. We see things through the lens of, my own personal gain. What's, immediately what's good for me becomes very selfish. So we have to chant the holy names. You cannot be in Krishna consciousness and not chant the holy names. This is our process. This is the process for this age. And everything begins with chanting the holy names. And then also hearing. We should read Srila Prabhupada's books. Listen to classes, yes, but we should read Srila Prabhupada's books. And we should look to apply them in our lives. And when we do that, gradually when we become into difficult situations, when our faith becomes challenged, we'll start to think, okay, this is how a Krishna conscious person reacts in situations like that. And I have a desire to become Krishna conscious. So this is how my mentality should be. Associating with other devotees, associating in a way that is about Krishna, not just hanging out with devotees or watching sports or cinema with devotees, or talking prajalpa with devotees. No, engaging in some type of service with devotees, hearing, chanting, or doing something very practical for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. And attaching ourselves, the other thing is attaching ourselves. All this is within the umbrella of doing devotional service. But connecting ourselves to the deity or to the preaching mission of the Krishna consciousness movement by rendering some type of devotional service with our lives is also important. Because it gives us a sense of dedication and practice to the mission of Srila Prabhupada and our lineage. And these are things when we apply them, again, immediately we have to take the steps that we can take. But over time, we will see the benefit of it. If we meet a spiritual master and are accepted by a spiritual master, this is encouraged because they can guide us and direct us and engage us properly. So this is also part of the process. But by all means, we need to do these things: chant the holy names, hear, engage in practical devotional service within our lives, read Srila Prabhupada's books very diligently, and associate in a positive way with devotees.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I just remembered one sloka of that one purport. The Krishna says, he gives knowledge and he gives remembrance, and at the same time, he gives forgetfulness. Can you just explain that, please?
Yes, verse 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya ham hridesana vishto matasmita jnanam apovatam cha varaisya savar aham eva vedyo vedanta kriveda vedeva chaham. So matasmita jnanam apovatam cha. That is, from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Right? So
I'm thinking of that
it's another way
forgetfulness.
that we can imagine that, you know, Krishna brings, you know, remembrance, because when we remember something, we think, well, how did I remember that? You know, I couldn't think of it, but now I can think of it. So now I remembered. Where did that come from? So, okay, Krishna has sent it. Sometimes we think, you know, we even say, okay, Krishna, help me remember. What is that? What is that, Krishna? And then it may come in. So it's out. What we're really saying is it's outside of our control. If it was in our control, we wouldn't have to remember. It would be in our memory. It would be in our on the tip of our tongue. We'd be able to tell you right away. What was that person's name? Oh, I don't know. I forget. What is it? I don't know. Let me think about it. And then all of a sudden it comes to you, and then you say, this is what it is. So you didn't have it, but now you have it. So now forgetfulness is, I have it. What is that person's name? Oh, I know what it is. And then the next day you don't know. And you think, where did it go? Somebody took it away. And this wasn't me. Somebody took it away from me. That is also Krishna. So how do I forget? How do I forget? It just shows you that Krishna is in control of everything. You know, subtly or grossly, Krishna is actually in control. Now, sometimes he's personally in control. Sometimes he interacts personally in the lives of his devotees, but a lot of times it's being done through his different energies. You know, through the laws of material nature, through different, you know, agents that he you know puts out there to, you know, to assist with these different things. But yeah, it just goes to show you that we're ultimately under, we're not in control, and Krishna is providing us not only with remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge as well. We're not the controllers. Yeah. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yeah, I'm thinking that, you know what, when we forget, when we remember thankful Krishna, when we forget, also blame him. God, Krishna, I just see some of the things in the Sita was saying that I want to know, I know everything. But still, sometimes I feel that, what is that? I should have done like this. So those things bothers me sometimes, you know. I hear all these slokas, I do everything, but I feel like somewhat I know, not that I know whole thing. I'm not that capable. But at the same time, when I forget, I feel that why just I'm reading everything. No, how come it's not occurring to me on the spot? Then I pray Krishna, say, Krishna, you're giving me forgetfulness also at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know how to handle that.
Yeah, well, it's good to see Krishna's hand in it, but we should strive in a way that we remember. So one way to help us remember is when we do things constantly. You know, we're always kind of doing it. You know, they teach us this early on in school, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're learning the alphabet. You have to keep writing it over and over again. Or you're learning your mathematic tables. You know, you have to, you know, keep, you know, doing it again. 2 times 3 is this. 2 times 4 is this. 2 times 5 is this. 2 times 6. So you get to the mind becomes practice, and then the memory, you know, becomes locked inside your memory. Now, throughout life, the mind also begins to deteriorate. So the mind is also material, and as part of this material energy, and will also deteriorate with this material energy. So that just like the material body will also deteriorate. You know, before this verse, you know, Krishna tells us that He is also the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities. So how do things digest in our bodies? It goes inside and we don't know. Something happens and it comes out, as our energy. We put in, rice, dal, and sabji into our mouths, and all of a sudden we have energy. And how does that converted from this food to energy, and then it kicks out, some waste? How does all that happen? Krishna says, that is me. I'm the fire of digestion. But yet the material body, even that fire, even that digestion, eventually deteriorates over some time because it's part of the material body. But Krishna is the one that's making it all work. So there are things that we can do to help solidify our memory. We can memorize verses, we can write them down, we can carry them around with us, and read them throughout the day. We can put them on our phones, or we can put little pieces of paper as reminders. These are things we can do to help lock, different verses into our memory. But at the same time, Krishna ultimately, in the course of time, will help us, make us forget, and due to the influence of time. And time will deteriorate the body.
Time is he too.
Yeah, time is Krishna as well. That's right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Time I am the great destroyer of the world.
Yeah.
You're pulling out a lot of nice verses, Mataji. Krishna's helping you remember all these nice verses from the Bhagavad Gita.
I don't know. Sometimes he gives me forgetfulness too, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. It's already 8:52.
Is that 8:52?
Yeah.
Is there anything anybody else would like to share? Kaivalya Prabhu? Any words?
Yes, Prabhu. Like you were discussing just now about how to remember the slokas. Actually, if we know the meaning, then I tried, that way, and then it's so much easier than remembering just the slokas. And there are so many slokas, important slokas. There are many, many. So, like in Bhagavad Gita itself has at least 75 slokas, which are very important. Bhagavatam has many slokas, Chaitanya has so many slokas. So remembering is really hard. But if you remember the meaning of each line and then try to remember and repeat it again and again, like many, many times, then probably it will be possible, and then it's not just one time remember and then forget it, we have to repeat it every 15 days or every month, on those all shlokas. So still it's in the memory, it doesn't go away. Otherwise, forgetfulness comes by Krishna very soon. And also these our material desires actually are very contaminating to our heart. And it is all desire. That's why we live in this material world. Krishna sent us because we wanted human body to enjoy. That's why Krishna gave this body like Ravana. He wanted to enjoy. And we can see in this shloka that how Ravana did. He kidnapped even the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi ji, in the form of Sita Devi. And even at the end, he knew Ram is the Supreme Lord. Still, he didn't surrender, so he didn't fix up his mind, in the Supreme Lord, so that was his problem, because he wanted to enjoy more and more, and he was thinking that nobody can kill me. So we all have that kind of tendency up to some extent, we have demonic nature and we have divine nature. We do have both. Somebody has more divine nature and very less demonic nature. Somebody has more demonic nature and very little devotee nature, the divine nature. So those things are in everybody, up to some proportion, according to our work, our karma in this lifetime or in the previous lifetimes, millions of previous lifetimes. So we do not know, but slowly we have to have full faith in Krishna, and we have to cut the knot. Actually, we read that shloka already, that we have to take the sword in the hand and cut the knots. What are those knots? Those knots are like desire of sex, desire of enjoyment, desire of money, desire of this, desire of that, each time, we think that we need something, we are putting more and more knots. So knots are keep increasing like that in our life. And sometime, the knot, we try to tight it too much, like we get attached to some particular thing, attached to money, attached to, yeah, attached to this happiness, that happiness, and those knots become so tight. And then the tight knot is hard to open actually. We see in our practical life also, if the knot is very tight, it's very hard. So that's why we should actually loosen these knots, cut it out. And when the knots are all removed, then we will be entering in good Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we have to, we are most of the most of us, especially me, I mean, still in Tamagun, so we have to go to the elevate in our consciousness, come to the at least should the at least in the Satgun, and and from Satogun we have to come to the Shuddha Sattva. That's very important for our spiritual life. So that's the hard part. We have to give up slowly these material attachments and think. These we came in this material world just like we worry about so much about our family. But what happens? Think that after death, our death. Where is my wife? Where is my kids? We have no relation with them at all. And we before this life we didn't have any relation with them. So why to worry so much? Of course, it's a duty we do, but that not having too much attachment. We are just like small straws in the river. Few straws got together, made the family. Few straws came more, made the society, made the country, like that. But these attachments are not very important. We have eternal relationship with the Krishna, and we have to remember that relationship rather than this temporary relationship. And we worry what will happen to my wife after my death, and what will happen to my son, and all those things. We should not worry actually, because at the time of death, these things actually we remember, and we cry for those things. Oh my God, Krishna is taking me now. What will happen to this person, that person? Nothing like that actually. Just remember him at the time of death, and Krishna will really take care of us. We should have full faith, as Mataji said. So faith is very important on Supreme Lord, and if we have full faith in Him and work according to His instructions in Bhagavad Gita, definitely we will progress in our spiritual life, and we should just try to do that and relish this Krishna consciousness. We are so lucky, actually. We should think that how lucky we are that we came to this Prabhupada's pure moment, where philosophy is so clear, and all our acharyas, Rupa Goswami Sanatana wrote so many grantha for us, and the Prabhupada very beautifully explained them, so nice, simple English. So we should take advantage of all this literature and see actually what is good for us and do accordingly, not get trapped into this Maya. This Guru Durga Devi is very strong, and it's alluring us all the time, every single day, every single second.
Yeah.
And we have to stay away from these allurements of Maya Devi, and take the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. Okay, so I will end here. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you very much. There's knots and then cutting the knots, and it's very hard, and we shouldn't be putting the tight knots, but it happens in life. We don't know, but it is very good one. He said, very nice thing. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kaivalya Prabhu.
Thank you.
So we're at 9 o'clock right now, so we will conclude. Thanks to all the devotees for chipping in and making this a collective class today. And we'll continue tomorrow, same time, 7:50. So please join in. Hope you all have a wonderful Krishna conscious day.
Thanks to the good association, devotee association.
Jai. Srila Ishwara Puri ki
Jai. Jai.
Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Jai